covers the hole. He makes sure that everything is appropriately concealed. He seems to have hurt himself in the process of setting this up. His knees are in pain, and he has wounds on his hand. However, he remains committed to the task. He then checks where his target will sit and deliver his speech. He then leaves the building, knowing that the explosives are right behind the podium. Adolf Hitler, the German leader, and the assassination target is welcomed with cheers by his peers. He is there to deliver his annual commemoration speech. His speech centers on the anniversary of the beer hall putsch that transpired 16 years ago. It was a failed attempt to overthrow the government. Behind him is where the bombs are hidden. He is handed over a note informing him that lousy weather prevents his plane from leaving. Hitler continues his emphatic speech. Georg checks his pocket watch nervously and then proceeds to the German-Swiss border in an attempt to escape. Two German officers call his attention as he's about to cross the border. He explains that he's looking for his friend from the Konstanz Folklore Society, but they remain suspicious. They bring him into their station and seize all the items in his possession, including a building blueprint. While he's being searched, he glances at a wall clock anxiously. The time is 9 in the evening. He knows that it's just a matter of time before the explosion. One officer sees his red front badge. He is told that it's illegal and is forced to face the wall. As the officer pats him down, he notices that Georg has injuries and puts him behind bars right away. Georg grabs his pocket watch, shaking. At exactly 9:20 p.m., a vast explosion ensues. He remains seated in the holding station, not knowing if the assassination is a success or not. At the Reich Security main office, an officer is informed of what just transpired in Berlin. Soldiers are in full alert mode. Meanwhile, Police Chief Arthur Nebe's convoy heads towards Georg's village. He informs local party leader Eberle that all the relatives of Georg are to report to the square. He is taken aback as he knows that the Elsers are good citizens. He asks what Georg has gotten himself into. Furious, Nebe orders him to follow his command. It did not take long for the officers to locate Georg's family, including Elsa, his ex-fiancée. Elsa is taken into custody while Eberle grabs her children. Eberle warns her to let go of her children, or the officers will take them too. Nebe checks the footage of the aftermath with his officers. He's blown away by the damage that the explosion caused. Georg is brought into Nebe's office tied behind his back. As he enters the room, he sees some torture paraphernalia on the table as Nebe joins enter the room. Georg refuses to greet the officer the way they do by saying, "Hail Hitler." Nebe informs Else that he's in charge of his case. He also introduces Gestapo head Heinrich Müller. Georg is ordered to remove his trousers as Nebe wants to see his knees. He is then told that the explosion killed 7 innocent victims and that Hitler is alive as he left the venue 13 minutes before the bomb went off. Georg is devastated by the news. That was his only chance. Müller begins to interrogate Georg, but he refuses to cooperate. He then puts himself back to the past when he was with his friends having fun at the lake in 1932. He was an accordion player and a woodworker living a simple and happy life. Part of the recollection shows him working as a clockmaker. While engrossed, he received a letter telling him that his father had sold 2 fields, this time, the most valuable ones. To sort things out, Georg went back home to his family. His mother hugged him while his father was in a deep sleep due to intoxication. While helping his father cut a huge log, he noticed that he was drinking cider again. Georg has had enough of this. He mustered up the courage to confront his father this time and threw the booze away. Georg remains unfazed in the interrogation room as he knows he's not working for anyone. He's tied down on a bed and is given one more opportunity to confess. Not getting any progress, the torture begins, and Georg screams in agony. He is then sent back behind bars. Nebe and Müller are discussing their next move on how to get a written confession from Georg. Nebe asks for the list of relatives that have been arrested. He knows what can break Georg down. Nebe brings in Elsa, whom Georg dated despite being married already to her abusive husband, Erich. Knowing what they can do to her if he does not confess, Georg decides to own up to what he did. He gives out his personal details and reveals that he acted alone. Nebe refuses to believe that he's apolitical as he's been caught wearing a red front badge. Georg explains that being free is enough for him to do what is right and that he does not need to be affiliated with any parties. Nebe and Müller report to the Obergruppenführer, who refuses to believe that Georg acted on his own. Nebe admits that there's not enough evidence to prove that someone ordered Georg to carry out the bombing. The Obergruppenführer wants them to intensify their investigation as ordered by Hitler. Georg writes a confession letter detailing what he did and how he did it. However, both Nebe and Müller do not believe it. They want to know where he got the materials and who gave him the order to carry out the assassination. Frustrated that they refuse to believe, Georg makes up an elaborate story that he received a call from Winston Churchill and was asked to kill Hitler. This irritates the officers, and he is again tied down. He asks for a pen and a paper to illustrate how he did it. The scene goes back to the time when Georg was in a pub with his friends. Erich came in with a bloody face. He admitted to Eberle that it was Elsa who did it. He then added that Elsa would not be talking back to him anymore. Sensing that Elsa might be badly hurt, Georg hurried to Elsa's house and found her lying on the bed crying. As he was about to comfort her, she kissed him, and they made love. That was the beginning of their affair, which Georg's mother highly disapproved of. Back in his jail, Georg admits to Neber how he was able to accumulate the gunpowder from the steel factory where he worked from. He also divulges how he was able to get the materials for the dynamite. Neber wants Georg to admit that he's covering for someone else, but Georg is very firm that he acted alone. Georg shows them how required 2 clockworks and the detonator triggered the explosion. Back to Georg's past, Elsa revealed that she was pregnant, but she was not quite sure if it was Georg's or Eric. Listening to the radio discreetly, Georg and Joseph found out that Hitler ordered the bombing of a Spanish town, killing 260 innocent civilians. This infuriated Georg, and he wanted to put a stop to it, primarily having known that Hitler was also planning to attack other countries. Georg and Elsa made out when Eric caught them. Georg was renting in the basement of the couple when this happened. Elsa was thrown to the floor. Georg grabbed a knife and threatened to kill Eric. Georg began to plan how to carry out the assassination. He collected news articles that showed Hitler giving speeches every year at the exact location. Behind Hitler's podium was a giant Nazi party flag covering a solid pillar. He knew what the next step would be. He waited until the venue was empty and then went behind the post to get an accurate dimension that would be required to carry out his plan. He got what he needed. Back in the interrogation room, Georg expresses his disgust about Hitler and his policies. Salaries are low, protesters are sent to concentration camps, and Jews are being discriminated against because of their faith. Georg adds that there will be consequences to what Hitler is doing and that it will lead to the downfall of Germany. His typewritten confession is then finalized. Neber is now convinced that Georg was on his own when the attack was executed. Muller, on the other hand, is not. While the two are discussing their next move, Georg begs the secretary to send a message to Elsa and his family. He also wants to send condolences to those who got killed. The number of casualties is now 8. The secretary secretly gives Elsa's photo to Georg and asks him not to tell anybody that he got it from her. A flashback to Georg's past showed Elsa giving birth to their son, whom she named Georg. This did not stop Georg from his determination to carry out his plan. He kept honing his skill to perfect the execution of the bombing. He tried it on a tree in a remote area, and the explosion was massive and brought down the tree. Back to the present, the Obergruppenführer storms the office of Neber and slams Georg's face on the table repeatedly after hearing what he said about their leader, Hitler. Neber starts to show that resistance but does not dare to act on it. The Obergruppenführer then instructs Neber and Muller to do whatever it takes to find out whom Georg got the order from. The Obergruppenführer emphasizes that the directive comes directly from Hitler. Georg is then tied down and drugged. This turns out to be unproductive as Georg has nothing to hide. In a flashback, Georg and Elsa lost their son. Georg decided to move to Munich without telling Elsa what his actual plan was to continue with his plan. Uncertain of their future, Elsa bid goodbye. Georg wakes up after being drugged. He admits that he now wants to make amends and integrates himself back into the community. He also adds that his conviction was wrong. He added that if he was right, the assassination would have succeeded. He is then sent to the Dachau concentration camp. 5 years after, Neber is sentenced to death for his part in an assassination attempt to kill Hitler. He is executed by means of hanging. In the Dachau concentration camp, Georg learns about the fate of Neber from Franz, a disabled prison guard who got the news from the new prisoners. Georg is surprised but is also concerned about Elsa. He wants to know where she is. He believes that she might be still alive and might be imprisoned somewhere. While empathetic, Franz knows that there's nothing that he can do about it. The guard shares that he's been admitted to the College of Music for the Disabled to lighten up the mood. As a way of showing gratitude to Georg, he then gives some music sheets that Georg can play using his zither, a musical instrument. Georg then plays the zither and sings along with